Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show.
It's time for another edition of Talk Back. Justin and I are in the studio tonight. It is Monday. We had to let our listeners know that we're in the studio tonight on a Monday night because who knows, Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday after the show drops, but before the draft, there could be a lot of late breaking news that we're going to miss simply based on our recording schedule. But listeners, we will be sure to update you on that either through Twitter, on social media, and of course, the following week. We'll definitely be excited about where players were drafted. As of next week, we're going to be talking about the upcoming opening of free agency. We anticipate a lot of moves happening there. Right before we hit segment one, I do want to commend you. Your daughter has been taking golf lessons. She's not very old, and yet her swing is not too far away from Michelle Wie. So I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing based on the texts and videos you're sending me. Where do you see that going for her? Does she really enjoy it?
She really enjoys it. I'll tell you how much she enjoys it. We've been doing lessons with our local Parks and Recreation, and to watch the development of her swing over 2 weeks is pretty crazy. It was extremely hot and humid here on Sunday in the 90s. Does her round, little hour lesson. Goes up, teacher got him some lemonade, and she goes, "Can we go back out in the practice green? I want to putt some more." Went back out for another half hour and just putted the ball. So she's really taken to it a lot more than gymnastics, which we had her in, which just, we can tell, like, yeah, not really something that she likes to do it, but not something that she's completely into. Golf, though, definitely into it. So as she gets older, hopefully now I have an excuse to actually go back out and play because I didn't want to play to miss time with her. But if we can spend it on the course, I'm all for that.
I am super jealous because my daughter at 11 years old and my middle son at 9 years old, I have asked them many times if they would like to go out with dad. And even on the practice green or chipping area, I would think that the driving range would kind of intrigue them. Can I smack the ball? How far can I hit it? Neither of them are interested at all. So I'm very jealous when I see your daughter doing so well already at such a young age. I think that's going to be great for you guys. Golf, we're going to talk golf too. In segment 2, the U.S. Open not only was upon us, but there's several controversies coming out of the U.S. Open. So let's lead us into the show. We're going to talk about Kawhi Leonard, the San Antonio Spurs. There's a lot happening with that. Obviously, the NBA draft coming up. Some of the other hot topics in the NBA. We'll hit all of that in segment 1. Then in segment 2, it's talk worthy. We head to Shinnecock Hills to talk about the United States Open and also over to Russia to talk about the World Cup. Some surprising results in some of the games in the World Cup, so I think it would be miss on our part if we didn't talk about some of those things and things that we've had our eye on. We look at the standings and go, okay, there's maybe some teams that are at risk here. And then if we have time, there's a couple of listener questions that we'll get to, and hopefully we have time to deal with that. So right after this, it's NBA in segment 1. Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs. Is it all breaking down?
We're back on episode 207. It's time to jump into segment 1. No on-the-court NBA action, Eric. NFL hasn't gotten kicked off yet, but we have a jam-packed show, but we have to kick it off with the lead story, and that's the news that broke on Friday coming into the weekend as it started to break that Kawhi Leonard wanted to be traded and had requested that trade from the San Antonio Spurs. If you listen to this show, you're a fan of the show, you've been following us now for a while, Back in March, Eric and I had a conversation about Kawhi Leonard, and at the end of that conversation, we both agreed Kawhi Leonard had played his last game in a San Antonio Spurs uniform back earlier in the season as a part of the 9 games that he actually played for him. We're kind of in an unprecedented era right now where you have an MVP candidate the year before that comes back and only plays 9 games because of a quad injury that turns out to be a bruised quad. You have his teammates calling him out, coaching staff calling him out. Eric, I felt like Kawhi Leonard has not looked good through this process because we haven't heard his side of the story. What has caused the quote-unquote mistrust or this level of comfort that he does not have with the Spurs organization now going forward? Kawhi hasn't come out and addressed this. It's been a PR nightmare from him. But Eric, we also have to look at this from the Spurs side because this is starting to feel a little bit like what the Patriots are going through. These organizations that have been the gold standard of their sport for all these years. And now, even with New England, you start to hear all this drabs. It's no fun to play here. There's no freedom in this system. We don't like it here. Now you have the Spurs, Rudy Gay. He's opting out of his deal. Last offseason, LaMarcus Aldridge wanted to be traded out from the Spurs and out from under Greg Popovich. Now Kawhi Leonard has requested a trade. So when you look at this situation, not really knowing fully the backstory here, who do you feel is more to blame for this marriage breaking apart? Is it Kawhi, or do the Spurs have to take a level of responsibility as well?
I think just like we said a couple of months ago when we predicted that he had played his last game as a Spur, we need to hear Kawhi's side of this story. We don't know if there was some sort of mishandling or mistreatment of this injury situation that sort of blew up within the organization in San Antonio. With that being said, though, the Spurs are traditionally a very well-run, at least from what we can see on the outside, just like the Patriots, a very well-run championship-style organization over the past 15 to 20 years. In fact, just a couple of episodes ago, we talked about where the Golden State Warriors, one of the best teams since 2000, and you and I both agreed that with the Spurs having the amount of championships that they have, basically from 1999 on, that over a 15-year period, you'd have to consider them one of the best organizations of the modern era in the NBA. And you traditionally also do not hear of these leaks and dribs and drabs that you're talking about that are controversial. Now, you kind of wonder where there's smoke, is there fire? Because Rudy Gay is opting out. He's not a highly marketable player. And so you almost wonder, why wouldn't the millions that he's owed by San Antonio be more attractive to him as a sort of veteran player than testing your skills out on the market? I think, I was reading it this week, I think he's owed something like in the neighborhood of $8.1 million if he stays with San Antonio. I'm not totally sure he's worth that on the open market, but he's willing to take that chance to get out of San Antonio. Meanwhile, LaMarcus Aldridge, as you said, threatened that last year. He ended up having a very good year on the court this past season. Part of it probably because Kawhi Leonard wasn't on the court, giving LaMarcus an opportunity to play on the ball a lot more and take some more shots. And so if Kawhi were to come back, I think you'd see a bit more of a drop in LaMarcus. But he's had his issues in San Antonio. Then, of course, you've got the aging dinosaurs, as I like to call them. They're on their way out. You're going to have Parker exiting, Ginobili exiting, and where is the future for San Antonio? Of course, we thought it was Kawhi. Now it doesn't look like it's going to be. And Justin, I don't see that this situation, as we predicted 2 months ago, it can't be repaired. I am now certain that it can't be repaired. So in your mind, where does San Antonio go from here? What are their options?
So you actually had some interaction with some Spurs fans, both through text and social media, and some of their response has been, let's do nothing. Let's make Kawhi play it out and just let the chips fall where they land and let him be a free agent. And it's better than taking on bad assets that are going to set the franchise back. So in my opinion, there's a couple different options. I'll get your take on it. The Spurs, they can certainly do that. They can stand pat. Kawhi has made it clear that his destination he wants to get to is LA. Rather, that looks like the Lakers are probably the preeminent team, but it also looks like he has some interest maybe with the Clippers. But there's also reports from Chris Sheridan that the Spurs do not want to deal with the Lakers, that they're not going to send him to L.A., and that they may not even want to send him to a Western Conference team to make them better, that it could be a team they're looking for from the Eastern Conference. So you can stand pat. You can make the trade to L.A. where Kawhi wants to go, where he would probably sign an extension, or you can take the next closest deal to that, where you're not really empowering the Lakers. You could actually be hurting them because if they can't trade and get him, if they want to bring in a LeBron James and a Paul George or Chris Paul or combination where you're going to eat up that $60 million in cap they have, then it makes it harder for them to bring on Kawhi if they don't trade for him because of the way the cap is in terms of spending. So with that being said, as the landscape, where do you think is their best option? I don't feel like making him stay. I don't think that's an option because that doesn't do anything. You see what happened to Oklahoma City when they stayed the course with Durant. He leaves. They got nothing for him. If he's not going to stay, you got to get something for him. So do you feel like you take the best deal regardless of the team, or do you not try to empower a Western Conference team, make life harder for them, and send him east to the best deal that you get?
My argument in my conversations with a lot of these Spurs fans is that Kawhi has all the leverage in this situation right now.
Well, once he announced where he wanted to go, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, because here's the problem for San Antonio. You can sit back and you can say all you want that we're not going to trade him to a Western Conference team. The problem is he's got 1 year and only 1 year left on his current deal. So you can trade him out east all you want, but his value out in the Eastern Conference, and really for some of the Western Conference teams as well, but especially out in the Eastern Conference, is virtually pennies on the dollar to what he's actually worth in the market as a player. Because no team in the East is going to give up major assets to San Antonio to have Kawhi come there for 1 year and then say, see you later, I'm actually not re-signing with you, I'm headed to LA as an unrestricted free agent. No team is going to give up. I mean, the Knicks aren't going to give up Porzingis. You're not going to have, I don't think the Celtics would give up Kyrie, or unless there was some promise that Kawhi was going to stay there. And if Kawhi is...
But how could you even believe anything that comes out of Kawhi's mouth?
Well, and that's...
After what he did. I mean, would you really be able to take the risk of a handshake deal, I'm going to sign here after what he did to the Spurs?
That's a great point because we don't have his side of the story. Until Kawhi opens his mouth and gets in front of a microphone to tell us his side of this story, we really don't know what Kawhi is going to do. Maybe the Knicks could have a private conversation with Kawhi, and clearly Kawhi has a team now. I mean, he's always been said to be this humble guy. He drives the same 15-year-old Bronco that he's had because he doesn't buy a new car. He doesn't spend his money. You know, he's a kind of a grounded, sort of at-home type of guy. That hasn't been the picture that's being put out there, not through Kawhi's mouth, but really by Kawhi not saying anything. It gives everyone in the media and people like us, frankly, the opportunity to say, what is he doing? And even, you know, one of my friends who's a huge Spurs fan says he can't stand Kawhi. And 2 years ago, he loved Kawhi. I mean, he was all in on Kawhi. Now he says, I can't stand him. So Kawhi's at a disadvantage in the media portion, in the public's eye, but I think he still holds that leverage because he can sit down with the Knicks and say, all right, yeah, if you give up Porzingis and some pieces and you bring me here as the showpiece, you know, the big dog here in New York, it's a major market. You know, I'd re-sign with you. I don't know. Can you take Kawhi at his word? I don't know. But really, that's any team with any major player. Can you take them at their word? What goes behind closed doors? You never really know. But I just think his value in the East is very low because of that risk. And the problem is, if there's any unknown, the Knicks, the Celtics, other teams in the East, they're not going to give up star players for a guy that might be around for a one and done. It's not going to happen. So the Spurs can say, well, I'm not going to trade him out west. Let's keep him on the team. And then, Justin, to your point, it's going to be Kevin Durant. It's going to be, well, he'll play out maybe at, I don't know, half his potential. Maybe he won't even play. He's not going to give the Spurs anything if he doesn't want to be there, but then he'll walk and the Spurs get nothing.
The Spurs have to do something with him. Just keeping him on the team just to, you know, have this petty altercation, you can't do it. You have to move on as a franchise. The bridge has been burned, clearly, and it's not getting rebuilt. Look, if there's a close deal with a Western Conference team, and you feel like you're getting, you know, that deal is maybe a 10 of a 10, and somebody in the Eastern Conference gives you a deal that's an 8 or an 8.5 of a 10, I do think you take the Eastern Conference deal, even if you lack a little bit, just because you keep the Lakers a year away from being a superpower. You let LeBron, if he would go there, for example, he gets another year older. And again, you make it harder on them to obtain it because if they don't have the cap space, they're going to have to give up assets. So you're draining them as well. So I think that's kind of maybe their thought process. But if the deals aren't close, then I think you have to look at trading him to a Western Conference team because how close now are the Spurs going to be to anything? They've been a model of consistency. Now, they did make the playoffs without him. So if they could add a few pieces in, maybe they can get back there. Maybe that's their thought process, and they don't want to make another sort of superpower in the West or give them that capability. This is a complex situation because, like you said, Kawhi has all the leverage. Once he came out